Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Spotlight Series presented by the Black Podcasters Association. My name is Corey Gumbs, and I'm the founder as well as your host. If this is the first time you're watching the Spotlight Series, this is a weekly show where we highlight Black podcasters, creatives, and podcast support professionals from our online community. The goal of the show is to help raise awareness, raise awareness of our community members as well as highlight their unique journeys within the growing medium of podcasting. Before we get started with the show, I'd like to make sure you guys, if you're watching YouTube, please make sure you like, subscribe, tap the notification bell for to be alerted about our future shows. And if you're watching this and you would like to support the content that we're creating, in our description, you can buy us a coffee. It's right there. Just looking at the link in the description. And today's episode, excuse me, guys. In today's episode, we'd like to welcome host of the White Label American podcast, Raphael Harry. Raphael is a Raphael or Raphael? Uh,
It's Raphael.
okay. I
But
always
Raphael is fine.
think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I say Raphael. Raphael is a Navy vet, a stay-at-home dad, and a volunteer. He's currently using his platform to help use his life experiences to bring down artificial walls and create engaging conversations that celebrate humanity. So, without further delay, I introduce to you Raphael Harry. Thank you for being here. Oh, before let me do this before we I always make this mistake. Um, if you're watching this on Facebook, please make sure you go to streamyard.com/Facebook. We'd love to see who's commenting. Sometimes we can't see who's commenting because your name is not there. So give Facebook permission so that we can see and we can respond accordingly and give credit due to the wonderful comments you guys always make while we're doing these presentations. But now, with that being said, here's Raphael. Thank you for being here, Raphael, on short notice. You stepped up when someone canceled, so I really appreciate you being here. But tell us about how you got started in podcasting. How did you wind up to this point in your life in the podcasting industry?
All right. Thank you, Corey, for having me. I my journey to podcasting is a long and weird one in that I I am someone who I've always been told that I had a voice that people wanted to hear from me. Initially, it had to do with sports, soccer specifically, and it started back in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. I had a family member who we didn't really get along, and one day he's like, "This boy, too much soccer. We call it football, and it's like all the football knowledge. You know everything. You're not really a good player, but you know everything. So I'm gonna take you on Saturday, which was probably like midweek, and he was like, "This Saturday, I'm gonna take you to my friend who has a show on Radio Rivers, the state-run FM. We're gonna put you on. He will put you at least 10 minutes, 10, 20 minutes. You're gonna be on the show." And I was like, "What? My voice? Hell no!" So I made sure I disappeared. Come Saturday, another time, the same person wanted to put me on his friend's show on TV, and I disappeared because I never believed that I had the voice that people really wanted to pay attention to. But we also had the sports papers. You could write to them, give an contest whatever story they put in their papers, and just from sending my email, people will respond to the email that I put in and say, "Hey, that guy gave a great opinion. We agree with that guy's opinion." And some people became my friends to this day. I've never met them, but we've remained friends online, and people were always like connecting to me that way. And it was weird that I was like the only person who never recognized my voice, because from the way I got into content via radio, I was attracted to foreign radio, which was the BBC, VOA, and mostly non-Nigerian radio. And I got to start thinking that anything professional was white voices. So I never saw my voice as a white voice. So fast forward to when I will move to the United States after 2007, and I will join the Navy almost instantly in 2008. I will get I will start writing for a website, just from fighting with people online over soccer. Because yeah, soccer fans, we get territorial, and I used to be very, very territorial. I'm still anti-English when it comes to soccer. I
Okay.
hate English clubs, but for a different reason. It's not for you know, it's related to colonialism, and um, from that I started writing on for websites, and people started becoming my friends. One of my very good friends in Brooklyn today. That's how we became friends over over 10 years ago.
Okay.
And the owner of one of the websites, Forza Football, she asked me in 2010, no, November 25th was the day that she asked me to come on a podcast to debate with fans of. I'm a Real Madrid fan, and to debate with Barcelona fans for the El Clasico, which is like the biggest soccer game in the world. And I was like, I don't know what this podcast is, but okay, I think I can give it a try. And I was on the podcast. I will never listen to the podcast because I freaked out after the recording. I realized I was the only black person, and I started feeling inferior to myself
Right.
and thinking that I did not do a good job. Although everybody said they loved me, including my rival fans. I looked at myself as somebody who did not have a college degree. So I looked for every way to sell myself short.
Mm-hmm.
So I refused to listen to that episode, and I erased the word podcast from my memory in 2010. And fast forward to me getting out of the Navy, falling into depression, having serious issues, and then ending up in New York, going to college, going to therapy, finally admitting I needed help. And my therapist saying, "Oh, you're not the type of person who should be hiding from the world. People like to hear from you. They love your voice." And I'm like, why are you of all people bringing this stuff up too about people loving my voice? I don't have a
Right.
voice that people really want to hear from. I do volunteering, but even volunteering, people gravitated towards me. I didn't get it, but now when I look back, even in Nigeria, I was doing some things that it shouldn't have worked if I wasn't who I was, because I
Okay.
was able to control people who were much bigger than I was, older than I was, and they were listening to me. So they were listening to that voice, but I didn't see it that they were listening to my voice, because I was thinking in terms of I must be rich before people will listen to me. I
Right.
must have. So I was always disqualifying myself. But the therapist said the same thing. And then, unfortunately, someone who I was a mentor to, he wanted to join the armed forces, Nigerian born. He came up to me and said, "Bro, I would like to start a podcast, and I think you are the person to start a podcast with, because from the Nigerian community, everyone who I've met, you're one person who's not afraid to talk about some of our shortcomings, and a lot of the things we try to hide."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay, how are we gonna do this stuff? Is it a YouTube channel?" He said, "Oh no, it's a podcast." I said, "Podcast? I've heard that word before." And now this is 2016. And I was like, "Well, why is it familiar?" He's like, "Oh, like Ezra Klein. You know Ezra Klein?" I was like, "Yeah, I've read his articles. He's a journalist that I like. I like that type of journalist." He's like, "Yeah, check out his podcast." So I listened to a bunch of Ezra Klein's podcasts. I was like, "Yeah, I can do this. I like his style of interviewing." But once again, he's not black. So, but I was like, "Okay, let's give it a try."
Right.
Unfortunately, it was the wrong person. I didn't research any further than that. And he said he would do the production and everything. I should just buy. He gave me a list, and I bought everything on the list. And he ended up stealing everything that I bought. We ended up in court, big fight. So I got frustrated. I got angry. I was still very, very angry. I was barely coming out of my depression then.
Right.
So I was like, I'm done. I'm done. This is it. I've had too many issues with my Nigerian community. I still had a lot of anti-blackness in me. Yeah, I'm done. I'm not doing this. But a few people who listen to, we put out like 3 episodes, and a few people who listen to them were like, "Man, you gonna do something?" Just because that guy messed up, we weren't listening for him because he was on the podcast, and the people are like, "He sounds stupid." But you were the guy who we know, and you were the guy who was making sense, and we enjoy what you were saying. So I was like, "You like my voice, really?" Oh yeah, I'm like, okay. Maybe I should do something finally. People
Hmm.
have been telling me for how many years, do a YouTube channel, do something, do this, do that. So my wife, she's from Germany, and she also said she also has this thing that she always talks about. Like anytime I take a taxi or Uber, myself and the driver just start talking. It doesn't matter where they are from, and they start telling me their story, and we connect. So she's like, I don't know how you do it, but people like telling you their stories. Maybe there's something there.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, maybe I can take that and um, put it into podcasting. I started seeing that there were so many artificial walls. Like I took a taxi one time, I had surgery and I couldn't walk, and the guy was taking me to the VA hospital, and he was born in Morocco. And by the time we got to the hospital, he said, You are the type of Muslim that we need. You would have made a great Muslim." And I said, I'm no longer religious. I'm not religious, but we had a great conversation. And he was like, "We need people like you in the Muslim community." And I was like, wow, this is but there were some artificial walls that we had taken off, that were broken down, and it was so great. I wish I could bring that man on my podcast, but I can't
Hmm.
find him anymore.
Yeah.
And there are so many people who I've met like that. So those inspired me to be like, okay, let's do a podcast where I can bring people to come tell their stories, their experiences. And somehow the way I was connecting with taxi drivers, the way I've connected with people in bodegas, the way I've connected with people on the trains, there's always a way to connect. And I use my experiences. I've worked on 3 continents. I worked in different parts of Nigeria. The hustle took me around.
Right.
We have 300 ethnic groups. So there's different people, different stories, there's different fightings that we have. And when you start taking stuff from each place, you have something that you connect to somebody from all over the world.
Hmm.
Bring it to America. Yeah, it's white labeling. We can white label the American, and also it's also meant to change the initial picture that we had of what an American should be before I left America, which was a white family, husband, wife, 2 children, picket fence, a house. When I got here, I saw that that wasn't my American dream. That didn't work for me. I
Right.
was living the dream was a lie. So I've met people who the same thing has been happening for them. They've come to that realization. So if you want to talk about that, talk about that. If you want to talk about all of the joys, you talk about the joys. But I give you a safe space. I try to be as accommodating as possible. The only place I'm not accommodating is when you start shifting to these blacks. When as soon as you go, yeah, yeah, no, I don't want you here because I've gotten over that, and I don't want any form of discrimination. I don't support that. That's where I draw the line. So that's the long story of how I came into white label American.
Okay. It was interesting when I remember when you joined the group and I saw it, I was like, White Label American. I had I'm not gonna lie, I had to go look at your page on Facebook because I was like, what is this? Right? The
Yeah,
initial reaction is White Label American. It's almost like, is this one of those, neo right wing type of things? And when I looked, I was like,
yeah,
okay, we got a black man running this. This is an interesting concept. So I'm glad you decided to come on here because I wanted to ask you, and then I know you mentioned it in your story, but okay, like for everybody that's watching, what do you mean by white label American specifically? Like, just make it
yeah.
clear for all of us.
Sure, that's a great question. So, um, I was also hesitant to go with that name, but I did a
Mhm.
mini survey of asking about 20 people of different races, and the only person who objected was he's a far right person. So I took that as a good sign because he said I was being racist to white people if I went with that name, and I was like, okay, yeah, okay, I'll go with that name then. But white label is a business terminology.
Right.
Every Almost every corporation does white labeling,
Mhm.
which is taking what you're taking your label and placing on what already exists.
Right.
So it's like water. Everybody has sells water, and they literally just place their label on it. So America is literally the most white label of every nationality that exists because somebody existed, and then someone came from another place and said, "This is American." So I looked at it that yes, I can easily name my podcast White Label American because I'm defining who an American is to me from the picture that I was giving. And I want my definition. to not be one standard definition.
Right.
It can have as many as possible. If it's gay, then it's gay. If it's trans. If it's multi-layered, and I
Right.
want it to represent that. But yeah, so that's why I wanted a name that is, to some is controversial, to some is like, wait, what? To some it's everything. But yeah, I grew to like the name. But at first I was hesitant when my friend recommended the name. His fellow Navy vet recommended the name, and I thought he was crazy for giving me that, because we veterans, we tend to have a dark sense of humor.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so I had to ask over 20 people, and they all, only one person and had a big reaction to it, like negative reaction. I was like, okay, that's a good sign. So yeah, yeah, it's all about placing my label on who an American is.
Okay.
That's all, white
So
label.
how has since you started your podcast with that name, how has the response been from your listenership in regards to, do they say anything about the name, or do they ask you about it, or have you gotten any feedback from as you grow your podcast?
Surprisingly, I haven't gotten any negative reaction based
Okay.
on the name. The only person I've gotten a negative reaction, but I know I can 100% say I know that that person never listened to the podcast, because I had to block the person recently on Facebook, because
Mhm.
when I launched my website, which was 2 years after launching the podcast, the same person was like, I told you I don't do anything with white supremacy. Don't ever tell me about this. So I was like, you've known me for over 10 years. And if you're going to still be claiming that I'm doing something with white supremacy, yeah, that's weird, because you've seen people who have been on the podcast, you've heard snippets. So if you that means you've never listened to anything. So if that's that's the only thing you can come up with, it's fine. If you don't want to listen, that's fine. But you can bounce. So bye. I just blocked you. So that's like the closest to someone claiming to have an issue with the name. But other listeners have been like, hey, what's this about? And as soon as I explain, they checked it out, and when they checked it out, they're like, "Oh, I love this."
Mm.
If you didn't love it, I never heard from them, and I'm fine with that, because I always joke about it. If you have something positive, hey, give me my 5-star review. If you have something negative, put it in writing, send it in private. I don't need
Right.
you to post that on my Apple page.
So how has your as a podcaster, because I know we have a couple fellow other African origin Africans in our group, and I know that right now in Africa it's starting to really take off and it's really starting to become something big. How is your connection here in America in podcasting? Do you have a relationship with podcasters in Africa as well? Or is this just something that something that you even considered building, since you have connections to both here and there?
Oh yeah, I do have a connection with podcasters on the continent. So the way I started, I just I started like I'm a lone wolf. I've been a lone wolf type of person for some time. So I think I use that mentality to go into podcasting. And with time, luckily, I got to know one or two people who, even though they weren't black, they were like, it's okay to ask questions, but you have to go into the community. And with time, I stumbled on the Africa Podcast Festival, and that's when I realized that, oh, I've been an idiot by just ignoring my continent of birth, and there was a whole bunch of podcasters there. So I
Yeah.
was lucky to attend the Africa Podcast Festival. I've been to a bunch of their events, virtual events, and I've gotten to have relationship with a bunch of podcasters from the continent. I've been fortunate to be a guest on, I think, two or three podcasts. One in South Africa, one in Kenya, and but I've talked to podcasters in Egypt. I've talked to podcasters from Zimbabwe, um, Malawi, and there's some from Angola that follow me on Twitter that will follow each other. But there's the language barrier because Angola is Portuguese, and Congolese. I know the Congolese diaspora. I'm close to quite a few Congolese diaspora in America because I attended um, their first meetup, which was pre-COVID. So all that has also helped. but it took my attending the Africa Pod Festival to realize how huge podcasting was on the continent. And yes, Nigeria too. I also know a bunch of podcasters in Nigeria and Kenya. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so do you feel like you're an ambassador because you're here and you're connected here and you're connected there for us? Because one of the things that I when I we had they had a conversation at the Afros and Audio Festival this year, and I thought it was a great conversation, and it made me realize that was the first time I really thought about podcasting on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean and how big it was there. And I just felt like there has to be a connection, right, for all of us because it does. You mentioned earlier about white broadcasters and seeing being represented within the media, right, and in the radio space, as well as here in the podcasting space, which is one of the reasons why we started this group. And how do you feel? Like, do you have an opinion on, like, I guess what I want to say is bringing both groups together so that we can together as one voice really advocate podcasting in our communities, because I think this is a great medium for us to talk about our views and stuff like that. And since you're connected over there and connected here, do you like try to take like an ambassador role, or have you ever thought about doing anything like that?
I haven't thought about taking an ambassador role, but I may have been playing an ambassadorial role in the shadows.
Okay.
So an example is the person who you got the information from at Afros and Audio. I was the one who recommended her to Afros and Audio when
Oh,
they were asking
okay.
for speakers. I just couldn't attend this year's festival. I attended last year's, which was my first Afros and Audio. Well, unfortunately, I missed this year's,
Okay.
and it was because I had met her. I'd met the co-founders of the Africa Podfest, and one of Josephine had been. I had interviewed Josephine on my podcast too.
Mhm.
So I was like, yeah, most definitely, we need to start connecting. We need to cross this bridge. Needs to be. We need to have a bridge, and not only just our brethren on the continent, also the brethren in Europe, the brethren in Australia, because I interview Americans who live in. I've interviewed Americans in Germany. I've interviewed African diaspora. Well, I think the second to last episode I released was two sisters. Well, I call them sisters, but they're two. They've been friends for over 20 years from Zimbabwe. They have a podcast. One lives in Czech Republic. One lives in Australia.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
which was quite a few. It was a logistical feat to have that
Yes, it is.
recording happen. And uh, they talked about they have a network of Black African women in Europe, and then I found out recently through my favorite podcast, the Black Guy Who Tips, of the Black women in Europe, which is a different organization that's been the Black Women in Europe podcast, which was started by Black Americans based in Germany.
Okay.
I'm trying to reach out to them to see if I can interview them because they're tied to Democrats overseas. But I listened to an episode of their podcast. They interviewed a woman who spoke to Martin Luther King before she moved to Germany. It was crazy, and I'm like, there's a whole bunch of Black people in Germany, and I know I'm aware of German history of with Black people in Germany is longer than 400 years. So it keeps spreading and spreading. So I'm like, yeah, everywhere I start, I'm like, yeah, if I can connect to anybody, I start connecting, and I introduce guests to other podcasters. Like I just
Right.
start throwing people. So without even thinking about it, I guess I've been playing an ambassadorial role. But I
Okay.
think it's part of my weakness of the self-confidence thing that I've always struggled with, of not officially giving myself a title. So I may not have considered myself an ambassador, except someone officially says, "Hey, you're an ambassador
Yeah.
because you connected Afro's and audio to Africa Podfest, and by
Right.
connecting Africa Podfest, you've connected Cario Podfest too, because
Right.
Africa Podfest moves with Cario Podfest. So yeah."
All right. So you got the title now. I'm giving it to you. I'm blessing you with. I'm putting you on. I'm putting that pressure on you now. No,
Hey,
it's just
thank you.
it's just interesting because podcasting for the past couple of years has been mainly like white orientated, white
Yeah.
male dominated, American.
Hmm.
Um, that space, and now that it's growing, and especially because of the COVID situation, it's grown even exponentially outside of the United States because and it's just to me it's like it's a beginning stage for us, and we need to come together and connect. You grew up, you're in Brooklyn, I'm in New York as well. We already know the whole beefs between American blacks and
Yeah.
African blacks and stuff. And I think podcasting is a great medium for us to really connect, join voices, learn about each other's culture, and realize that the stereotypes, like you said, the stereotypes when you were growing up, that you found they're not true. They're not. It's not what you think it is. You came here to
Hmm.
America thinking white, mom, father, the son, daughter, white picket fence, and then you say, oh, it's like a culture shock. Oh, this is not what they keep the images they keep hitting us with and showing us.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we bring that together. So, I definitely wanted to do something in a group with, with our African brethren as well as, American brethren, and try to really start the process there. So I'm coining you the ambassador of the group now. That's, that's payback for all the jokes
All
today.
right. Let me put on my ambassador hat then. I wasn't thinking of putting this on, but I have to go because every ambassador I knew in Nigeria had a hat on. So it might be bent, but it's all right. I'll put it on sideways.
We'll fix it. But let's talk about and you mentioned a lot about white supremacy and colonialism, right? You stuck it in there a couple times. So how has that helped you, or how has that played a role in your voice with your podcast?
Uh, it's something that I am still on wiring because there are times that I learn. Well, I'm still learning because the day I stop learning, I'm dead. That's what I always. Something I believe in,
Mhm.
and um, so I believe in the beginning of my podcast, there are stuff that I've said that I wish I could take back, but I'm not going to edit it out, or I'm not going to go back and say I'll change that. But looking back, I can tell that I know where it came from,
Right.
and I know that the more I read, the more I researched, the more I going forward, they were like the very first podcast that I appeared on. In the beginning, I was like, yeah, anybody come. If anybody wants to have me on their podcast, yeah, I'll jump on it. And the very first person to someone introduced me, an acquaintance who's a journalist in Europe, put me in touch with another podcaster who also an immigrant who was her family came to America, um, quote unquote illegally, undocumented. Let me say undocumented, and then she moved to Ireland, and she's now a citizen there, and has a podcast similar concept to mine. And I was like, oh yeah, we same idea, but I did not listen to my intuition. And there were times when I listened to an episode before I jumped on her podcast, and I was like, huh, did I catch that? I don't think so. I mean, maybe I should give her benefit of the doubt. So I go on her podcast, and there are times, she let me speak. She let me do my thing. It didn't seem I didn't have a problem. And then she came on my podcast, and there were points she was making, and I was like, huh, wait a minute. The alarm bells, my spider senses kept going. The spider
Kept tingling.
tingle was like pow, 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 pow. So the only thing is it's like I got distracted by that because there was a question I already had, but I did not write it down. I was about to ask her, like, what exactly is your relationship with black people in your country?
Mhm.
And I just forgot to, that just went out of my head because I think I was probably getting angry at a point at myself, like, dang. I was like, no, 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 no. Maybe I'm looking too much into this. So I let it go, put the episode out. And then a few months later, I saw her posting some stuff online. I was like, oh, confirmation. This she was outright right wing, anti-black stuff. And I was like, oh man, yeah, she's from Brazil, but I look at it, you don't have black friends, really. There's no, but she said something during the episode, like the first time she saw a black person, I think she was literally when she came to America. I was like, you grew up in Brazil, you didn't see black people, and, but that
Well,
was a red flag.
people identify differently outside of America, so,
Yes, but
there's
the way she said it,
yeah.
because she's been outside of Brazil for a long period of time. I knew what she was saying. I caught it,
Uh-huh.
and But my intuition, but I was like, nah, I'll let it slide. I'll let it slide. But now I wouldn't. Now I
Right.
wouldn't, because there's something there, and if it was it my because my I listen to my intuition now. In the beginning, I was like, oh yeah, I need guests, I need people. Come on, or if you call me to your platform, I'll just jump on it, and I'll be like, wait, why is this person talking like this? Well, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, no. I don't think you and I are a good fit. I
Hmm.
don't want to be on your platform. I don't want to show up and start fighting. I don't do the gotcha type of thing. So yeah, not everybody should be on my platform. I've had to say no, since I realized I had the power to say no.
Right.
I say no to people, and yeah, it's part of the white supremacy thing is there, because there are a lot of people who come from similar to me. I've had people on my podcast who, it's one thing I always love when they're honest about it and say, yeah, well, we came to America, we never realized we're black. One of them, she ended up she grew up somewhere in Georgia, and all her family was, they went to a white church, had only white people, and then she ends up at the HBCU, and luckily met people who were there for her when she was like, oh my goodness, I'm black. Yes, you
Right.
are. They welcomed her, took care of her, and like, yes, we receive you. And she was like, wow. And when she explained it, I understood what she was saying. I got it. But the majority tend to be like, no, I'm not gonna say that because I've been woke right from. I'm like, no, we weren't. None of us were woke. It's cool to say we all love Fela if you're from Nigeria, but that's a lie. None of us love Fela. We hated him because he smoked weed. That's how we were taught as kids. If you're my age, you
Wow.
hated Fela. Now Fela, everybody loves Bonner Boy's mom worked for him. That's why he can. But it's a claim to say you smoke weed. You use
Hmm.
Fela to hide under I can smoke weed. That's a code for I smoke weed. You can't
Oh.
do what Fela did. Fela's called government's names out, so he was enemy number one. And you don't do that in Nigeria. No musician can call the government. You're gonna get beat. That's why they killed his mom. So there are certain things that we understand that, and that all that also speaks to do not challenge authority. You don't speak against the church. So when the church, so many church scandals in churches, you don't speak against that. The mosque, I've seen mosques, Islamic schools. If you lived in the ghetto, you saw Islamic schools. Children were beating children there with whips. The kind of whip that if you touch me today with, I'll be crying. Hell no. But
Right. Right.
we saw it, and the people who are like, oh no, I'm only going to come on your podcast and talk about, I'm a millionaire. I came to America with $1. Now I'm a millionaire. I'm like, no, I'm not interested in that. We need to be honest and give our story and talk about how we are learning and unwiring the programming that we're giving, because it's deep down there. So, like, another example is the current anti-vax thing going on now. People think that it was just because of social media that we have it now. No, we had it in Nigeria in the 80s because of a scandal in the north, the most conservative part of Nigeria is in the Muslim north. Fires are fucked up, excuse my French, and um, a couple of children unfortunately died
Hmm.
for polio vaccine. And some imams use that as, oh, the West is trying to wipe out the Muslim population. And anti-vaxxers have been coming to the United States, from United States to Nigeria and from other parts of the world to that part of the country to tell people do not take vaccines. So polio had been eradicated in the world except for Nigeria. In the 90s, polio should have been gone.
Right.
But because of Nigeria, it started spreading to surrounding African countries in the northern part. And as a child, I remember that. And I'm like, it didn't make sense to me. Why are these people from the north having polio? And then they will come start begging because Islam has this thing where it's okay to beg. It's a complicated thing, but and they will come begging, and we'll be like, man, we don't like these people because they're Muslims. We're better than them. But when you start constructing, you start seeing how we use that we are better than you, but they have political power. Their elite have power over us. So we have a chance to and then stamp them. So we're doing that. But if you look at where did that messaging come from? Who brought that kind of messaging to you? Why would somebody bring that kind of messaging? And then you start saying, like, wait, why was it in 98? I'm in church. And the prayer point is we must pray for George W. Bush to be reelected in America because bad people don't want him to win because He's not against, he's against gay people. I was amen. The same church that I worked for 15 hours, carrying cement, building the biggest auditorium. And when you look at all that, why won't I hate anybody who has a different opinion to me? Why wouldn't I hate
Right.
you? As soon as you, oh, I hate you. I hate you. And then I find out somebody in my family is gay. And okay, I'm going to pray for you. Jesus will save you. The rest of the gay people go straight to hellfire. And so you see, but at the end of the day, I'm looking like, who is bringing this information to me? Then I find out that the gay people have always been around. There's so much stuff when it comes to sex, marriage, and all that. Different tribes. There are 300 ethnic groups in Nigeria. Everybody has their own thing they've been doing. And then you look at, wait, how did all this information come? Who brought it?
Right.
How do we measure? So, like, do I measure professionalism by white people's voices? How did that start? Who were the people talking around me that said, oh, this person sounds professional? You must speak like this. I was speaking, before I was 5 years old, I was speaking 4 languages. My family used to beat me because they said my English wasn't good. Your English, you have to speak English. Why did they say I have to speak English? I was going to learn English no matter what. I learned English at school. But they had to beat me. And then when I became 17, I found out that almost everybody in my family spoke 4 or 5 languages. But I couldn't speak 4 or 5 languages because now I speak English good. I can speak the other languages. And now, but by then I was like, so they want to teach me French in school. I'm like, hell no, I'm superior. I'm a British citizen. I'm a British subject. You know, I'm not even a citizen, I'm a subject. We don't need French. No one speaks French in the world. Now, give me flogging. So they'll be flogging me in school. I'll take 10 strokes on my back, pop my collar, because, hey, British, right?
Right.
And then I'm 18. Somebody offers me a job. Hey, I need somebody who speaks French. You know, we're going to pay you. You just get, I'm like, what? You pay money for French? What? Ain't nobody tell me this. I would have learned French in school, but hey, too late now. So
Yeah.
there are so many ways this stuff has entered into our system, and it's like a big unwiring that we have to do because we don't even realize, like even the Premiership, the soccer that we in the 90s, Nigerian soccer league was huge. You play in Nigerian league, you go straight to Europe, you're a big star. But now our league is dead. Who wants to play in Nigeria? They don't even get paid. The state government owns the teams. So if you don't kiss the state governments behind, you can't. But everybody has to go. You support white teams in Europe, and we look at. I mean, people literally
That's
kill each other for
that's where the
that.
money's
So
at. You know, everybody goes where the money's at, right?
yeah,
That's part
but
of it.
the why don't they sponsor you in Nigeria? They used to get sponsorship back in the days. So it's so wide and far spread that we don't even realize when we come to America, because we come with this attitude like, when we say our black brethren here, because before we arrive here, we've already been told black people are they're lazy. Black people, because the way I still remember social studies being told Martin Luther King fought for civil rights. As soon as he died, as soon as he was murdered, uh, Civil Rights Act was passed, racism ended. That's how it sounds. It's just like that. Racism ended. You repeat, you say, I have a dream speech. If you can give the speech from beginning to the end, if you say it right with an American accent, you get a scholarship. Hey, okay. So we were wondering why are black people complaining? What are these black people complaining about? There must be the problem because, man, if I'm in America, I won't have any problem. If I had access to all this stuff, I won't have any problem. Then you come to America, you're like, wait, there's racism? How did this racism come? Where did it come from? What is this? So by the time Trevor Martin is murdered, and that's when my own crack happened, and I'm mad, and I'm posting on Facebook. My cousin, who's married to who has a very wealthy husband, she writes to me and says, "Bro, you need to stop this. You know, it's not our problem. It is their problem." That's what she told me. It is their problem. Why are you doing this? What is wrong with you? Okay, mind your business.
That's
Few months
interesting.
few months later, a Nigerian American is shot in Atlanta by the police. Guess what? She's tagging me on that. Raph, why are you not talking about this? Why are you not doing this? Of course, now she recognizes my voice. And I'm like, okay, I was about to talk about the guy, and then I realized, wait a minute, why is she interested in this guy? You're never interested in people who get shot. It was a guy who, he was from the elite. He had money. He met the model immigrant, he's clean, that. So that's why she's now interested. And I'm like, hey, so he's not really black. That's the point she was making. So how did the police touch this one? My own family did the same thing. I was there when someone wants to get
Yeah.
married, and they say, "Oh, you're not getting married to a black person." Thank God, oh, thank God, he didn't marry a black American. I'm like, wait, nobody's asking. Did you love this? What? How do you meet this person? Did they love? Oh, thank God, it's not a black American married. I'm like, it's complicated. So I think part of the things that made me even change was when my nephew started talking like my old self and saying he doesn't want to date anybody in Nigeria. And I was like, bro, shut up. You live in Nigeria. You better. I'm not going to send you, import a girlfriend for you. You better figure it out. I'm not. So it's far and wide. I mean, bleaching. I wanted to bleach my skin when I was younger.
Really?
There was,
Okay.
yeah, oh yeah, I wanted
We'll
to.
have conversation about this stuff a little bit more. This
Oh,
is
there's a
interesting
lot.
'cause
There's a lot. It's fast spread. It's everywhere, unfortunately, and
yeah,
not everybody is comfortable talking about it. It's not. People think we are trying to shame ourselves, but I say if we can't, the only way we can conquer it is if we talk about it. We address it.
you have to
And
identify and talk about.
yeah,
You're
we
right.
identify and talk about it.
Right.
So it's there.
All right. I mean, you got a lot of stories, man. You might have to just. I know you have conversations with people. You might have to do like a mini podcast series just of your journey and the things that you've been through and the experiences to help bridge that stuff because that's a lot. And but I want to ask you a question though. I know you mentioned about the depression part, right? And you
Yeah.
started podcasting around the time when you were depressed. Did that help you? Did when you started? I know you had two bad experiences, and they say like the third time is the charm, right? When you started podcasting during that time period in your life, was it a tool that helped you come out of it, or was it a part of it, or just didn't have any effect on you?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think I've ever gotten that question before. Uh, I think because I had started therapy,
Hmm.
although I treated therapy back then like a pill of ibuprofen that you just take and then you get cured and then bow, you're good to go.
Right.
So, but the fact that I started therapy helped that I was able to um, that when I began the podcasting, it became another outlet or another form of therapy to me. It was therapeutic to me,
Hmm.
and it helped me to an extent that when the setback came, yes, I was angry. Yes, I was disappointed because it was somebody who I did everything that I've helped a couple of people join the military since I joined the military, and nobody gave me, even my family member was in the military, didn't give me any information. It was, oh yeah, dude, just tell them you want to do supply, and they got you. And then I start finding out everything. It's like you bump into the wall and then you find out as you go in. But I help people who I didn't know. There's some sent me messages on Facebook, and I did what I like. You're not gonna go in blind. I don't do that for people, and yeah, it's not like they owe me anything. But I just want to make sure you have a better experience than I did,
Right.
because that also played a role in my being miserable. So I made sure this person had everything, every information. I went far and beyond to push
Right.
this person and make sure it was a good the person, by the time the person made his final decision, the person could say, yes, this is what I wanted to do, this is where I'm going. You didn't go in blind. So for the person to turn around and stab me in the back, it was very hurtful. And it was, and it felt so big that I was like, I'm not even interested in doing this podcasting thing. That's
Right.
what it felt like. So even though I was enjoying the podcasting, and I had issues with talking with him, because an example was, we had said we're going to be doing a podcast based on current affairs in Africa. So we'll pick stories, news stories from Africa, and then we'll talk about it. And it was going to be a comedic spin because, yeah, I tend to be a funny guy. I tend to laugh a lot. One of my um, the joke I have about myself that I'm an aspiring dictator, and we we'll pick the stories, and then we'll start. He will agree to the stories, and then when we sit down to record, he wouldn't agree. As soon as we started recording, he would bring up something brand new. He doesn't want to talk about that, and then we'll switch everything. So it just felt like there was confrontation. But I was like, yeah, okay, I'll play along. I'm just down. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. I was,
Right.
another thing again. I did not listen to my intuition. I didn't follow my intuition, and still, I wasn't expecting that betrayal to happen. So I think the betrayal kind of overrode the therapeutic feeling that I got from podcasting. But by the time I made it to the second, uh, by the time I made it to the second by the time I started White Label American,
Hmm.
uh, the joy I got from that was, I think by the time, I think the first three episodes that I recorded were with people who had never done anything podcasting, never been in a studio to record or share their story. And they all kept saying, wow, this is great. I feel so good having said my story. I
Right.
would love to do this again. If you ever need me, let me know. And I feel so great. I'm so happy that I got to share my story. And the look on their faces, the joy, just made me realize that, wow, this is quite powerful. This is great. And I
Hmm.
felt good inside, but just seeing it on someone else made me feel extra good. And it started as I think that was when the healing officially began. And later on, I was still return back to therapy because the more the pandemic went on, I just started feeling some other way. So now I'm back in therapy again.
Okay.
But I'm okay enough to do therapy and use my podcast for therapy too, and
Okay.
encourage others to go to therapy. So everything has worked out in the long run. And yeah, I think if I hadn't been in therapy at the beginning, I don't think I would have been able to jump in, get into this journey, because I remember talking to a Moroccan sister who's based in Germany, and I told her, like, if I wasn't afraid in 2010, and I said, okay, let me start a podcast in 2010. Like, sometimes I think about it, like, oh, what if I had just gone into content creating 2010? Maybe I would have been huge now, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, maybe. And I said, no. I said, the person who I would have been then was the type who would have been like, whatever makes me popular, I'll be doing it. And I would
Right.
have hated that person. And she was like, oh, but that doesn't mean that's okay. I said, no, that's not okay. That's not me. If you've known me, I got stories of why I never joined a gang in Nigeria, why I never joined the guys sending emails. It's not like I didn't have opportunities, but it's just, if I don't feel comfortable with something, I can't do it. I just can't. So yeah,
Oh, well, I know we're glad to have you, and I'm glad that things worked out the way they did. And everything's it's always hindsight's 2020, right?
yeah,
And one thing I've tried to do myself, because I've had my own little journeys in life and stuff, is when I think about it, I'm like, when people ask, well, if you can go back in time and change something, I say no, because then I wouldn't be who I am today, right? All those experiences help lead me to where I'm at right now in my life. We probably wouldn't have this conversation. There's so many. It's so many what ifs, right? Like the Marvel,
true.
right? What ifs, right?
What
So
if I'm a big Marvel
right,
guy? See
yeah,
behind me there
I
too.
know. See the shirt.
I saw the movie yesterday, so no spoilers. I don't
Please no.
disrespect.
I'm gonna see within the next couple of days, but it's just you're here. You're here to do whatever it is your purpose is, and those moments, those moments you regret, there's always something to learn from it, right? So I'm
True.
glad you're here. We're glad to have you. You've been a huge since you joined the group. You've been you got fans, as you can see to some of the comments. Everybody's been enjoying. Today I finally learned the depth of your sense of humor, because you guys had me
uh,
rolling. I put myself in the situation, so you guys took well advantage of
uh,
it, and as part of
hey,
my learning process, like I had like the mistake I made, I learned a lesson from it. So,
hey,
I
there
think
you
that's
go.
good.
There you
I think
go.
that's good. I want to ask one more question, then we're gonna start wrapping up.
Sure.
What can people when people come to your podcast, what kind of conversations can they expect from you? I know we got a lot of information from you in this during this time that we've been talking, but like when for those people out there that don't know anything about your podcast, when they see the name that and it brings them in, what can they expect from you? What kind of
Authentic,
conversation?
authentic conversations that you wouldn't expect that they take you everywhere. You know, Eh, they even take me everywhere. And but you're going to learn. You're going to learn. I can't tell you what you will learn, but I believe you will learn for the good and
Mhm.
mostly positive. Um, an example is I started asking meaning of names. It was much later that I did that, and my producer slash sound engineer used to laugh at me that uh, we have this joke that he didn't realize that Africans struggle with other Africans' names when it comes to pronouncing their names.
Okay.
I'm very good at pronouncing people's names, no matter where they're from, but I've had one or two who I was like, man, I give up. I just give up. Like I give up. I try because before recording, I'm going over the names. I'm like, no, I can't. And when they start telling you the meaning of the names, it's fascinating. I know all the meaning of my names. Mine is tied to colonialism because we were the first people. My area was the first to meet the Portuguese when they arrived in Nigeria, so we converted
Yeah.
to Christianity, Catholicism, Christianity. Yeah, well, in Nigeria we consider Catholicism Christianity. So that's why I it plays a role in my having my last name should be Ari, but because somebody couldn't pronounce Ari, we end up with Harry.
Okay.
And um, there are people when they start telling the story of their names, it's fascinating when you see how their names might be tied to somewhere in Uganda, but the person is from Ghana, and you're like, wait, what? I wasn't
Mhm.
expecting that.
Yeah.
You get the ones who are tied to another to I start discovering like, wait a minute, I knew these names when I was in Nigeria, but it's actually an Arabic name. But based on the way they've been pronouncing the name over the years, we pronounce the name the same way. And I was like, wow, it's actually an Arabic name. So if you go by the Arabic pronunciation, it's literally it's changed. They've changed over the years, but
Right.
it's an Arabic name. The meaning stays the same. And from there, an artificial wall has been broken because you see a tie, you see how there's a tie, there's a connection,
Hmm.
and there's so many connections that so many ways we are connected, and we don't realize it. But the artificial walls of religion, colonialism, sports, whatever, there's so many things that we just use to block ourselves from knowing each other, from being one people. And I don't believe we're all the same. I don't. We're not the same.
Right.
We have differences, but we still we deserve to be recognized in our differences.
Right.
And I believe once you come to listen, you'll find something for you because everybody's story has something powerful for everybody and
That's
positive.
that's great, man. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna do because we're getting close to the hour mark. So, a couple questions, real easy. Since joining the group, what has the group meant to you? What does it mean to be a member of the Black Podcasters Association?
Oh, this is divine, man. This is divine. I wish I had something like this from the beginning. Yeah, I probably would have been my confidence level would have been much higher than when I initially started podcasting. But yeah, no regrets though. But I just love you know I didn't identify. I was already identified as black then, but I didn't realize what it meant being around so many black creatives. It's like when I joined the Africa Pod Fest, we also have a platform for the African. They're building a platform right now for African podcasters, both in diaspora. And I'll talk to Josephine, and I'll introduce you to Josephine too via email. I'll get both of you talking, and it just it's that kind of feeling seeing your people, and like wow,
Yeah.
you're not alone. It just made me feel I was on the right track. It just made me feel I knew I was doing the right thing. Yeah. So even when I see one or two African podcasters who were kind of giving the wrong information, I'm able to talk to them privately and say, hey, maybe you might want to, and they're like, oh, I appreciate you, bro. I'm like, yeah, but I don't want you to fail because I want you succeed, I succeed. You win, I win. And I love all of you winning. I love everybody winning
Yeah.
because that's me. So I love seeing it. Like all the Advent idea. I've listened to each and every episode. I haven't listened to yesterday's episode. I owe a few people 5 stars, but everybody's getting the 5 stars, 5-star reviews because I love it. I love it. My black content has gone up. My Spotify list of podcasts were all black podcasts for this year, so I love it.
Yeah,
It's
you've been one of the biggest supporters of that. I'm glad that you've been jumping in saying you encouraging people and giving them their reviews and stuff. So I really appreciate you doing that. I'm glad you love it, and I know Bethany, that was Bethany's idea, so I know she's gonna love hearing that part too because I totally forgot what an Avid calendar was. My grandmother used to do that stuff when I was a kid, but I didn't know what it was, and she was like, "Hey," and I was like, "You know what? That's a great idea, and I love what it's done, and I'm glad that it's brought more attention to all the people who were lucky enough to sign up fast enough." Because we
yeah,
did get people asking if it was still available, and I'm like, "Well, it's only 24 slots, and I would love to." So we're thinking about doing it for some other occasions as well. So if you're
awesome.
watching, make sure you catch that post as fast as possible because those spots fill up really quick.
Yeah,
It was
there
real
you go.
surprising, but at the end of the night, we had it full. So, but thank you for being a member of the group. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story and you sharing your journey. And we definitely, down the road, hopefully in the new year, we can have something where outside of the spotlight where we can have actual discussions. I'm working on some ideas with that, but glad to have you. But the most important thing is how can people get in touch with you if somebody wants to be on your show, if somebody wants to follow you, listen. What are some of the ways they can get in touch with you?
Oh, the fastest way to get in touch with me right now is www.whitelabelamerican.com.
So
You
your
know,
website.
that's my website. It's
Okay.
brand new, so I need everybody to go there. I mean, I'm on all socials,
It's nice, by
but
the way.
thank you,
I like
thank
it.
you. I kind of freestyle on it, but yeah, I have to start praising myself. So yeah, so that's an
Yes, you
aspiring
do.
dictator. I only plan to rule for 10 years and I bounce. But yeah, we're still working on the master plan. It's tough to get 54 wives from one wife from each African country, so nobody will try to overthrow me. So it's that plan.
That's a good plan. I didn't even think about that. I have my own aspirations of being a dictator, so I'm gonna have to think
uh,
about one more thoroughly.
my, wi-
So we have
my,
your
wi- my, wi- my
website.
wife my wife's gonna peep out now. Like what did you
What?
just say?
50
I'm like
what? 54 what?
I play the fifth on that.
1, 2, 3, 4, fifth. But
uh,
all right. So we got your website. What else? What other means can they get in touch with you?
oh yeah, Instagram is my favorite social media. White Label American podcast. I'm Pod WLA on Twitter.
Twitter.
I don't tweet 24/7, but yeah, hit me up there too. Facebook. Um, what else? I'm on YouTube also. I could
Okay.
use some subscribers there. Yeah, and
Well, what's the YouTube
Patreon.
page?
Patreon.
What's the YouTube page? Because
Oh,
you didn't
I
give me
think
that when you registered. You didn't give me the
yeah,
YouTube.
yeah, just White Label American
Okay.
podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
Same with Patreon. Yes, but Patreon should have been the second one actually, because we need the money. Give us the money. I'm not
So
going to take over countries if I don't have the money. You have to support a black dictator. Come on, people. Don't be supporting white dictators. Support a black dictator. Unlike Jeff Bezos trying to go, Elon Musk. I'm not Elon Musk. We're going to deny Africa. I'll support Africa. Just give me your money. Your money will go to a good cause.
all right, brother. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. Had a great time. I know uh I don't know if Steve is still watching. If he is, he did mention earlier, you probably saw it when he was like asking about Real Madrid. Really. I'll show the comment. So
Oh,
he's in the group. You can take
he's
this
a
outside of here.
Barcelona. That there you go. You guys are broke, man. Broke people. Don't even talk to me.
So
Yeah, you can't. Except you give me money, then we can talk. Yeah,
I want to instigate the conversation in the group. So you can
Hey, if anybody wants me on their podcast, hey, feel free to reach out to. I love this group. I'm not recording until January, but I'm available to be on people's podcasts too. So
okay.
you don't have to be only immigrants. I go on anybody's podcast. I've been on a few people in Brooklyn's podcast. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Enjoy it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining the
Oh, one, one,
spotlight.
one last thing though. If you're
Yes,
a Barcelona fan, you gotta pay me to come on your podcast. Just saying.
sir.
And English Premier League fans too. You gotta pay me. They got money. So it's just. Yes.
I wish I could say I know much about the soccer stuff. Now you want to talk NFL, we could talk NFL and Major League Baseball. But um, thank you, bro. Really appreciate having you. It was a great time. I know a lot of people enjoyed the conversation.
My
Again,
pleasure.
keep up the good work.
Thank you.
So we're just gonna close out. I want to just thank everybody for checking out the spotlight. Make sure you tune in make sure you tune into our next show coming up this Tuesday on December 21st at 12 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be spotlighting our next Black Podcaster Association member, Catherine. I think it's Bacello or Bacello. She's a host of the Black Men Cry 2 podcast.
Mm.
So again, please make sure you guys subscribe, like, tap the notification bell if you're watching this on YouTube so you can stay updated. And to help us continue to support, and to continue helping us create this content, this type of content, you can always buy us a coffee. The link is in the description. Man, listen, I'm tongue tied today because I did a 2-hour presentation right before it. So
Hey.
I'm like, I don't know how people do this on a daily basis, but I'm ready to go. But thank you guys for checking us out. If you'd like to learn more about the Black Podcasters Association or join our official Facebook group, you can check out the links in our description. And you can also head over to our website, blackpodcastersassociation.com, to learn more about what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and as well as sign up for our newsletter. So with that said, thank you again, Raphael, for being here. We really appreciate you. And everyone have a good night.
All right. Mbana and Abayo. That's my language.
What does that mean, by the way?
Oh, thank you and bye-bye.
Okay.
I'm
not even gonna try. I'm not even adios and sayonara. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it, but you're gonna have to teach me. You're gonna have to teach
it's
me.
simple. Those are the simple ones I can speak.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.